Hello, everyone. Doing another video exclusive, and that's kind of the point. Things are happening. Well, like my show the other day, was that yesterday? Was that Tuesday? I don't remember, and that's kind of the point. Things are happening so fast and furious, it's almost impossible to keep up. And that's part of the point. We need to help keep the pressure on and the momentum going. Oh, I was going to say, like my show the other day, I think it was Tuesday, right? Fast and Furious, things about the Doge derangement syndrome and other things going on. So if you haven't checked that out, please make sure you go back into BitChute, Brighteon, BitChute, Brighteon, Daily Motion, Rumble, YouTube to catch these video exclusives that aren't dropping necessarily on my 20 plus Constitutionalist Politics podcast, normal audio only outlet shows, episodes, I mean. Today, I wanted to talk about tariff wars. Okay, what is it? What are they? What the fact versus the delusion the left wants to peddle. I was on Maverick News with Rick Walker a couple weeks ago, before this stuff all started, and with the Canada US tariff threats back and forth and whatnot. So, first, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? You know that phrase. I was just at dinner. I made some quick notes. Can you make that out? So I'm going to try to get to each of these points. I oppose taxes. I'm for lower taxes. I'm never for raising taxes. But for every rule, there can be an occasional exception made. If you're never adhering to your rule, everything you make up as an excuse as to be an exception, you've got no principles or values. They aren't rules. They're lies you tell people, and rhetoric versus reality and actions. Like in the Fast and Furious thing, I had an Uncle Festerman session, right? I don't care about his rhetoric. He votes with Chucky Schumer, and as George Soros pulls the leash back on him, he rolls over and indeed voted against Tulsi Gabbard, voted against RFK Jr. I don't care what he says. This supposed he's all for cooperating with, no, cooperating with Trump or whatever. Yeah, he's concerned about covering his ass for his 2026 election. That's all it is. It's a game. It's a gimmick. It's a lie. He votes 90+% with Chucky Schumer and Pelosi all the time. The man's got to be removed. Shall be known by your fruits. I don't care what's coming out your mouth. I pay attention to how you're voting. And sadly, too many Americans do not. They fall for the TV fluff. And I'm tired of hearing some Republicans singing his praises. Well, he just voted against Gabbard and RFK Jr. All right, where's that cooperation? Where's that, oh, Trump should have the cabinet he wants? No, no. When his chain is yanked, he votes with the commie fasci sociocrats over and over. He's got to go in 2026. This moderate routine is just that, a moderate routine, a lie, a ruse. But back off the subject, back to the tariffs, right? I oppose tax increases, but an exception for these tariffs, right? What's good for the goose, good for the gander. I wrote down here tit for tat, right? Okay. Fair trade, free trade. For too long, we have indeed wanted free trade. And we've given free trade our direction, no tariffs, but including our allies, the European Union, Canada, Mexico even, let alone our enemies, China, they impose tariffs on certain things. What's good for the goose, good for the gander, tit for tat. So while I am against tariffs in general, I agree this is an exception to the rule time. It's time that if you put a 35% tariff on our stuff, we put one on yours. And spare me, it means price increases on everything. No, it doesn't. Some things may go up short-term pain for long-term gain. And in a lot of cases, it's not even happening. You already saw the tariff threat against Canada and Mexico has yielded results. So the tariffs are not yet imposed. They're delayed 30 days, probably will be delayed 90 days. Most of the tariffs that we're looking at being put on will be imposed never. But let's examine tariffs as a whole. Import tariffs especially, right? Import tariffs, they say, will all be passed on to you and me. And, well, I was going to say, too, things are happening so fast and furious. I sat down to get into this. I didn't even plug in my headphones to do this, so I apologize if the sound quality is a little less today. But I needed to get here, sit down, and get into this before I forgot. China, for example, especially China as the example, the CCP subsidizes most of their corporations so that indeed they're producing things not at even lower cost. The subsidy allows them to send things here at prices sometimes less than the cost of the production. It's called flooding a market to try and eliminate a competition, and then eventually you hopefully have a monopoly, a corner on the market of widgets or whatever. So an import tax of 35% on Chinese widgets doesn't mean you're automatically then paying 35% more for the widget. That makes our companies a little more competitive, or as Trump says, right? You want to avoid the tariffs? Build a plant to make the widget here. It will be untaxed by the tariff. You're employing American people here. You're competing directly in America, the market you want to be in. So 35% tax on the widget, China might up 25% the subsidy they're giving. So yes, there might be a 10% part of that tariff you and I are asked to absorb at choose your favorite place to shop or online. Oh, pardon me, excuse me there. Had to cough. But even that 10%, you have choice in this nation. If they don't have a monopoly yet, you've got other options. You can buy widget from an American-made company. And indeed, if the American-made company knows that their Chinese widget costs will be 10% more, the U.S. widget is more competitive, and the U.S. manufacturer might cut the price of their product a bit to indeed be more competitive, equal price. And how often do we hear the Made in America push about trying to buy more things made in America, not assembled in America, where everything comes from overseas and then it just gets assembled here, but actual things like Allegiance flag, no, not a paid promotion. I freely am talking about them. They're not paying me. I'm not getting any ad revenue out of this. Allegiant flag, U.S. flag, flying in my front yard. Why? Because it's American made. And it's made much better than the crap if you buy a U.S. flag that was produced in China. I've had some of them, and of course they've fallen apart. That's why I bought the U.S. Allegiance flag, and it's lasting a lot longer out there. All right, so I was willing to pay a little more for that, but the U.S. widget might be same priced, or if the U.S. widget maker can arrange to cut distribution costs, make a deal with the retailers to take a little less of a cut too, might actually be cheaper. And we get market share back. They're willing to I can't talk today. They may be willing to shave a little profit margin, all of them. The makers, the distributors, the retailers. If the wholesale price is cut, that should be reflected through the whole chain, by which selling more at a slightly less profit actually means in the long run more profit. So spare me the just because Trump threatens a tariff, it is indeed happening automatically tomorrow noon. Not the case. Some people still have not read Art of the Deal. They don't know what's going on here, or they've read it, they don't care. The media lies. Lies, lies, lies. Watch what and wait, see what actually happens, not the leftist hair on fire all the time, idiots lying to you about what will be. Okay, import versus INC. Okay, I've made myself a note and I've thrown myself off there. Income, I guess. Well, moving along, since I've lost train of thought on what that point was. I'm fair versus free trade, right? You don't get free, tariff-free markets here if you're engaging in protectionism there. Tit for tat. You put 35% tariffs, then okay, reciprocal. That's fair trade. You're charging us, we're charging you. No more freeloading, free markets to you, but you want controlled and protectionist markets against our stuff. And there's the other thing. Certain things we need to engage in protectionism, like Trump with the U.S. steel deal the other day. Still blocking. One thing Biden did right, blocking U.S. steel from being bought up by Nippon, Japan, friends, allies, but still we want that production to assuredly stay here. We want the monies, the majority of the profits to stay here in the U.S. We want the U.S. workers to continue to be employed here, right? So I'm all for Trump reworking and negotiating, Nippon investing in U.S. steel. That's the right way to do it. And, it's not just a supply and demand issue. Demand has changed for the steel. That's been a big part of it. But let's not pretend U.S. steel hasn't been mismanaged for such a long time. So as part of the investment, Nippon needs to have a couple of board members and some members in the management, and the mismanagement at U.S. Steel stopped. So I'm definitely for investment from allied nations, not enemy nations. That's completely different, completely opposed. China being able to buy up land around our military bases. Enemies. That's just stupid. That has to not just be stopped, it must be overturned, it must be reversed. So, my last point, want lower tariffs here, as Trump says, lower your tariffs there. It's that simple. Reciprocal. We are no longer going to be the suckers of the planet. America first is not America alone or America only, but indeed it is putting America's interests actually back on the table as opposed to the leftists, the commie, fascists, sociocrats, as well as too many CINOs and rhinos putting others first. Now, I've said this in another show. This is an aside in closing. Nixon, the China, opening of China, that made perfect strategic sense at the time. Opening up to China, better relations with China, opening markets somewhat here and there to China and with China, in hopes that then a better living would rub off and freedom would come there. Well, that hasn't happened. Why? Okay, the Nixon policy was perfect and fine for the 70s and even into the 80s. Where it went wrong was in the 90s with Clinton and Gore and Mitt Romney and other CINOs and rhinos deciding, hey, like here in Michigan, Justin Amash got tossed from office because he was opposing tariffs, opposing being harsher on China because he had financial interests in China. He was lining his pockets abroad at the expense of the American people. So opening China made sense, but in the 90s, and even more so now, that policy needs to change. It ultimately was working at first. It is now a failure. Sometimes things change as new facts on the ground happen. They've had every chance to become a member of real, fair, free trade nations, but refuse to do so. So now it's different. Now it has to change. And that's why I indeed agree as a not exclusive, as a not an excuse, as an exception. There's the word I'm looking for. As an exception to the rule, we must put on tariffs unless you're willing to take down your tariffs. We deserve to protect. We must protect our steel. It is a matter of national security. We need to bring back manufacture of pharmaceuticals. That is a health security issue. We cannot allow China, our enemy, to have control of these things over us. Okay, I've gone on. I think, I hope I've made all my points. I hope you're there with me. I hope you grasp all this. I hope that you will share this and other episodes with others. I hate the like, share, subscribe, like a parrot BS. But indeed, if you're not sharing, you're not helping. What are you doing? Like the other day, I did have, I think, a video exclusive also. So you voted, so what? What are you doing the next 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, whatever, now to make a difference? Not just whining and moaning online. What constructively are you doing to promote things to actually happen? Doing things to make an actual difference, not just whining, and sharing things like this with people like those independents who have no clue what's going on. There's a reason why the left didn't want civics taught. They don't want history taught, unless it's their revisionist history. They don't want economics taught. They don't want accounting taught. They don't want people to understand these things. Like George Carlin said, it's the left. They want people just smart enough to operate the machines, but certainly not smart enough to be able to think for themselves. They want them to be mind-numb robots, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, right? Brain dead, follow the herd, easily indoctrinated, pulling that jackass lever, despite the fact that that party talks a good game, but does nothing for them. Stop with the rhetoric. Shall be known by fruits. Look at how they vote. I don't care what your supposed intentions were. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, as they say. What are the results? What is the outcome? You hear the left talk all the time about equity, right? They want equality of outcomes rather than equality of opportunity that this nation stands for. And yet, at the same time, they don't want you to examine their failings, their failed outcomes every time. Oh, we will do this, but then it does exactly the opposite. They create a problem, they offer a fake solution, it makes matters worse. Examine what they say versus how they're voting versus what actually happened. Reality over leftist delusion. Okay? Please like, share, subscribe. Again, I hate asking, but we're only going to get somewhere together, like my We the People demand list. We're only going to get somewhere if people stay involved. You can't just rest your laurels and watch TV all day when you're home from work. I'm sorry, yes, it's work, but our document says we the people for a reason, and we got here because we the people stopped paying attention, stopped doing things. So you voted, so what? What are you doing today, tomorrow, next week, next month, the rest of the year, and next year? You've got to do things that matter, not just whine, moan, and complain online. Blah, 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 blah. Doing things that matter. So, at any rate, I felt it necessary. I was having a discussion with somebody out there today about tariffs, and indeed, just happened to be a she, but agreed. So many people have no clue. They just hear the tariff manure that media spews, and since they didn't have an economics course or a civics course or an accounting course, they've got no real clue. So they just listen to the talking heads rather than think for themselves. They get emotionally hysterical. They're snowflakes. They never engage the brain and deal in logic, reason, and common sense. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care and God bless. Podcast fans, get more about your favorite podcasts via deepcast.fm, transcripts, and all kinds of extra available information on your favorite podcast, including Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, is listed at deepcast.fm, as well as, are you a podcaster? Well, you can claim your free listing and more via Deepcast Pro. Check out tinyurl.com/DeepcastPro for podcasters for your free listing, and that's the number 4 in there. tinyurl.com/DeepcastPro for podcasters, the number 4, Deepcast Pro, the number 4 podcasters via tinyurl.com extension. Take care all. You gotta check them out. Get more out of your podcast, whether you're the podcaster or the podcastee. Yeah, I think I just invented that word. Just wanted to give a brief shout out and thank you to all the folks on iHeartRadio, Player FM, being 2 in the top 3 platforms that my show, Constitutionalist Politics, is most often listened. So thank you all. Take care. Thank you for having tuned in for Constitutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.